Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another Quran study. Today we'll be reading from Surah 23, we'll be beginning at verse 37. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Verse 37, we only live this life, we live and die, and we will never be resurrected. He is just a man who fabricated lies and attributed them to God. We will never believe him. He said, my Lord, grant me victory, for they have disbelieved me. He said, soon they will be sorry. The retribution struck them equitably, and thus we turned them into ruins. The wicked people perished. And subsequently we established other generations after them. So, we can see here that God sends his messengers to warn communities. And, from the verse 37, you can see how the disbelieving people, whether they're from this community or just any disbelieving group or faction of people, they disbelieve in the day of resurrection. They disbelieve in being resurrected altogether, right? Because it also, I guess it shows, that they, their hearts are, seek the things of this world, right? That's what they would prefer, because they say we only live this life, so that's all they have hope for. They don't believe in any accountability so we can see why these people act the way they do. And even when a warner comes to them, they accuse the warner of being crazy and or fabricating lies. And it's interesting to see here that I guess they're professing it's probably fake belief in God, because they recognize God, right? Because they said he is just a man who fabricated lies and attributed them to God. So they realize, or I guess instinctually maybe they maybe believe in something, but they're still they still disbelieve in the truth that comes to them, and so it's God's inevitable system that he always grants victories to his messengers, and the believers. And as we can see, he this messenger even said soon they'll be sorry, right? And of course the retribution strikes them, and the wicked people perished. And then it's in verse 42, subsequently we establish other generations after them. So this has been the system, this has been the case, like with the people after Noah, and how God, the generations that come after them, they repeat the same mistakes of the generations of old, right? So it's not it's not wise. They're not. You can see that they're not wise, or they don't use precedents from the past to look at these people that have been annihilated time and time again. There's never been a generation that's been warned and asked to turn to God and repent, and warned about the retribution, and retribution doesn't come to them. That's never been the case at all. It has been the case that God's retribution inevitably afflicts these people. Verse 43, excuse me, no community can advance its predetermined fate nor delay it. Then we sent our messengers in succession. Every time a messenger went to his community, they disbelieved him. Consequently, we annihilated them one after the other and made them history. The people who disbelieved has perished. So we know that all power belongs to God, and so whatever fate a community or whatever fate a community has coming for them, or whether it's all been predetermined by God. And sometimes it's hard for people when they see the word predetermined or predestination or something like that. And sometimes they want to object. Excuse me. Sometimes they want to object to that because they don't understand. They don't understand the qualities of God, right? Because if they understood or just had, even maybe a sliver of understanding of God's qualities, they know that God knows all things from the beginning to the end, and anything is easy for God to do. And as far as we're concerned, we still have our free will, we still have our freedom of choice, and we can choose. But I've seen, a few people, turn apathetic or even disbelieve about this concept, because it's hard for them to understand, and I understand that too. But we have to realize God's qualities, and as far as God's concerned, everything has already been written. That's the truth. So nobody can advance its predetermined fate, nor can they postpone it. So all of that's in control by our Creator. And the messengers have always been rejected every time, one after the other, and this has just been history has repeated itself so many times, and inevitably we can safely assume that it's gonna do the same thing, with these generations. And as you can see in the recent years, with the time of the messenger, the Arabs and the Saudis and basically the whole Middle East have disbelieved when a messenger has come to them warning them. So I guess we have something as powerful as the 19 based mathematical miracle. So in a way, it can be kind of surprising, but in another sense, it's not. If we are reminded of these verses, this has always been the case. So in some ways, it's not really surprising, and it makes more sense, and it even affirms to me even further that who's God's messenger, right? Because we can see all these fake messengers and these fake prophets and these apostles and pastors or sheiks, that are widely accepted by so many people, like in the hundreds of thousands and the millions, right? But they're all fake, but the real one is usually always going to be rejected, except maybe a few people will go with them. Such was the case with like Noah, and by the end, it was the same case with Moses and Aaron. He was only left with a few legitimate, sincere believers. Verse 45, Moses and Aaron. Then we sent Moses and his brother Aaron with our revelations and a profound proof to Pharaoh and his elders, but they turned arrogant. They were oppressive people. They said, "Shall we believe for two men whose people are slaves?" And so I'll stop right here so we can see, as it was kind of mentioned too in a previous Quran study, I like the way it was put, but you can see like this is a test, for people, especially for Pharaoh and his people, because God's not going to send someone like maybe rich like Harun or whoever, because then people might just accept him because of his popularity, or he's so wealthy and he's very prestigious and etc. with the people, has a big reputation and all that. God doesn't want, because those people, are they really accepting because they love God and they want to be redeemed, or are they just doing that because it's easy? Everybody's going to accept him, so it's a test for people's ego, right? just the, it's Moses and Aaron pretty much versus Pharaoh and his army, and all his political figures and stuff near him, magicians, all the, basically the entire this entire community, which is very powerful too. So it can be really intimidating, and they also you can look at their arrogance, how they're discriminating against people who they've enslaved, right? So this is a test for the ego, and it just goes to expose their wickedness, right? So when they end up in hell, like they can't they'll know why, they'll really know why they were there, why they end up there, and we also know the Quran says oppression is worse than murder, because you can see like these people, there's families are being torn apart, people are probably being killed, worked to death. It's basically torture, right? Where if you take the life of somebody, that ends, So, Pharaoh and his elders were very arrogant, and they were extremely oppressive. So, but God is still merciful. God is still giving them a chance instead of just, they probably, deserve to just be wiped out, but, God is the most wise, right? So he gives us all a chance, and chance after chance. And he gave Pharaoh so many chances too, with the plagues and so it's really, when he gets to hell, he's not going to have any excuse, because he was given so many chances, So the verse 48, they rejected the two, Pharaoh and Moses rejected the two, and consequently, Pharaoh and rejected Moses and Aaron. So they rejected the two, and consequently they were annihilated. We gave Moses the scripture that they may be guided. We made the son of Mary and his mother a sign, and we gave them refuge on a mesa with food and drink. One God, one religion. O you messengers, eat from the good provisions and work righteousness. I am fully aware of everything you do. Such is your congregation, one congregation, and I am your Lord. You shall reverence me. So, we can see one God, one religion. O you messengers, eat from the good provisions and work righteousness. So, God is fully aware of everything we do. And so, it's important to note here that, believing in God alone and being consistent with your belief in God alone, being completely satisfied with the Quran alone, right? Because once you get the message of submission, as it's been passed down and began with Abraham, and we have the final scripture that supersedes all scriptures. You're not gonna someone who doesn't believe in God alone, or is not happy with what God says in His revelations, the Quran, the final testament, they're gonna look for other sources, such as hadiths, or stuff even from the Bible, to uphold as a religious source of guidance. And it's really simple, but people, I think, fall into I understand myself, like I understand how people can make this mistake, but people fall into peer pressure, social pressure. What's the majority of people following? What are they doing? What practices, that aren't in the Quran that are doing, and they fall victim into this trap, But it would be better for them if they, I guess, kept the truth simple for themselves, and just if it's not in the Quran, we don't accept it. It's really that simple. God doesn't make the religion hard. He doesn't have to go through hoops and loops and all that stuff. It's very straightforward, and that's what's so another miraculous and beautiful part about the Quran versus the previous scriptures. They say you could read 10 verses and then nothing is really said in some parts, and that's not to take away from the previous scripture's essence, or like it's power in some ways, like but we know the Quran is the most powerful and it's the most accurate of all, So, verse 53, but they tore themselves into disputing factions, each party happy with what they have. Therefore, just leave them in their confusion for a little while. Do they think that since we provided them with money and children, we must be showering them with blessings? Indeed, they have no idea. So, yeah, you can see this is commonly seen. Like people worship their egos, they worship their opinions, and they tear themselves into disputing factions, and it's and you can't, like, if you're following directly out of the Quran alone, you're following exactly what God commanded you to do, and what he writes for us, and you follow the exact examples of the messengers and the precedents that have been set, and you go to tell somebody, or you're trying to teach somebody or enlighten them. That's not your opinion. That's not the opinion. That's the truth, because you can't go wrong with sticking with the truth, what's in the Quran, God alone. But people who come up with these nonsense ideas and stuff, they try to push these on people, or come up with their own twisted understandings. I think it's unfortunate, right? And somehow, some way, Satan has enticed them to, favor their opinion over what God is telling us, because God says this, but and especially, we also have a clarifying messenger, as that, that's one of the purposes that God sends these messengers, to clarify and reveal some of these things. And so, when people oppose this information coming to us, they're obviously they've fallen victim into one of Satan's traps, and so thus they dispute, they tear themselves apart, they each party happy with what they have, right, and they rejoice in this stuff. But that Satan will try to complicate the religion, and make it, all these different, and I mean, you can see this happens with every religion, like Islam, Christianity, Judaism, but as we know, God will be the judge over all these disputes, so, and of course, just because you're, like we see from verse 55 and 56, people who are provided with money and children, sometimes they think that these things are, God is showering them with blessings, which is, it should really make, like you see this a lot, like, very wealthy people, whether they're teaching up in a mega church, they have like all these nice things, they have tons of money, nice cars, big family and stuff, and then they get up on TV and they talk about their blessings, like like it's something like they're somehow favored or something. But as we can see, I mean, like, these people are promoting messages of idol worship, idolatry, and just falsehood, or I mean, even the New Age stuff has crept into to like Christianity, and maybe Islam is or traditional Islam with the traditional Muslims as well. But they really think they're blessed, But the Quran says, indeed, they have no idea. But these people will wake up to really, if they don't reform, they'll wake up to a really horrifying reality about this stuff. And so we see in the next verse, surely those who are reverently conscious of the Lord and who believe in the revelations of their Lord and who never set up any idols besides their Lord, as they give their charities, their hearts are fully reverenced, for they recognize they will be summoned before their Lord. They are eager to do righteous works, they compete in doing them. So yeah, these are the people who have fully submitted to God and reverence God and don't take the hour or the day of judgment lightly. They're going to be people that are very cautious, I guess, in everyday life, like just, making trying, doing the right thing, like in all thinking about God all throughout the day. Hence, never setting up idols besides their God. So if something afflicts them or something just happens, like today or yesterday or happened yesterday or could happen tomorrow, they'll realize that God is running everything. They submit, they self, they reflect upon themselves. And we can see the verse about reverently conscious of their Lord. So if you don't have reverence, which a lot of people, they may talk about reverence. I've had people that, claim that they're reverence or they're talking about reverence, but, when you go to them with the truth or you ask them just simple questions about, maybe even rhetorical questions about what they're worshiping, you can see that they're not, I guess, reverent enough, or maybe there's no reverence there. It's just fake because they run away in that version and never give a thought, like to the seriousness of how serious, like, of a situation all humans are in, like why we're here to test, and being reverent. Because if you have reverence, you're gonna maybe think twice about doing this, or or you're gonna think way harder about into a situation recently that could have come up, or how could have I been better. How could have I responded better? Or maybe I need to start doing this, stop doing this, and it's even for like the extremely small things too. Because like something which helps me, I think about is how it talks about like in Adam's weight, how God is aware of everything down to an atom and smaller. And we talk it also. We also have in the Quran. This is all mathematically proven. So like this is true. We know for a fact, like it's as true as what our two eyes, see in front of us, and how, our eyes open and close, and how we wake up every day, and when we see the sun, it's as true as that. So we can rest assured that, everything on the day of judgment, both small and large, is going to be accounted for, and like even down to a mustard seed. And a mustard seed is like the smallest. I think it's one of the smallest seeds, if not the smallest seed, out there in existence. So that really says a lot. So it's a reminder for even more of a reminder that reverence is good. And we can pray and ask God for to increase our reverence as well. But naturally, like if naturally with belief and submitting to God, this stuff should just come to you. Because like if your heart is open, and as we can see, as they give their charities, their hearts are fully reverent because they recognize that they're going to be summoned before God, and that they're going to be held accountable for everything they do, and they know that in that moment that they're giving charity, that God is watching them, the angels are recording, and they're really trying to help themselves, grow their souls. They're not helping God. God doesn't need any help. They're out to worship God and help themselves. And so, verse 62: the disbeliever is unappreciative. We never burden any soul beyond its means, and we keep a record that utters the truth. No one will suffer injustice. So this is important. It's an important. We see this throughout the Quran about like the two paths. The disbelievers are unappreciative, and so if anybody turns unappreciative for any minute, no matter who you are, what religion, what age, you are, where you came from, where you're born, you're a disbeliever, right? Even if it's if you're unappreciative for 20 minutes or something, or 20 seconds, like for those moments you disbelieved, and like all the blessings and all the things you can be appreciative are around you. So it's important, that God, like when our souls are never burdened or given beyond what it can handle, and this is also, I think it's maybe for what it's worth, it's good to mention that this is also in the previous scriptures as well, that God will never test the human being beyond its limits. That's I think it's in the gospel, or if you want to call it the Injil, what was given to Jesus. And so, no one will suffer any injustice. So we know, like, if we can see no one will suffer any injustice, then there's nothing that no human should ever get upset about, right? Because even if your car blows up tomorrow, and you had a real nice car and it blows up, then it's I mean, it says no one will suffer any injustice. So I mean, that's not unjust what just happened. It happened, and it's in our best interest to respond accordingly. Maybe examine ourselves, or maybe it's just a test to see how you react. So because we can be appreciative our legs didn't get blown up, or maybe we weren't in the car that got blown up. So there's always, I guess, there's always like a way to look at these situations in the better light. And naturally, the submitter is gonna do this. The submitter and objector, as it's talked about, they're gonna submit to God, what God is doing. They're gonna be happy with it, and it's not just like fake happiness and fake submission. Like, oh, I have to submit. Like no, you have to. And this is something that can be worked on too, right? It's something this is part of what makes it so good, or makes it great, like striving and growing our souls, because it becomes better, and we mean it more too. We're more cheerful, submitting to God, and that's happiness. Because nothing else could take away our happiness. Because we understand God's in complete control, and He controls all matters. Because their minds are oblivious to this, and they commit works that do not conform with this, their works are evil. Then when we requite their leaders with retribution, they complain. Do not complain. You have given up all help from us. My proofs have been presented to you, but you turned back on your heels. You were too arrogant to accept them, and you defiantly disregarded them. So you can see that the people who follow their leaders, they're and I mean even the leaders themselves, they're going to complain when justice comes to them, right? Because we just read in the previous verse that there won't be no injustice. So when retribution comes to these people, they want to whine and complain for whatever reason, and it's like, do not complain. You've given up, you've thrown away the opportunity to get help from the messengers, and guidance from the messengers, which of course, all guidance comes from God through His messengers. But they've given that up, so there's nothing for them to complain. It's like if someone offers you a tool to fix, a machine you work on, and then you laugh at him, or you scoff at him, and you run away, and then your machine breaks, and now you can't fix it. Now he's left. It's like you can't complain now, because the opportunity was presented to you as God's. My proofs have been presented to you, but you turned back on your heels. They were too arrogant to accept them, and you defiantly disregarded them. So it's just a really tragic, terrible case for the human being to suffer from arrogance, because arrogance is just worse than a disease. Maybe you could call it a disease of the heart, but it's maybe more than that. But we'll just keep it at arrogance. It is what it is. It's arrogance, and so it's unfortunate that people hold on to these things that could be will be a factor in sending them to hell. And you really have to look at it like that, because until you realize, like, having an ego and these things which have caused our exile already one time, right? We've been essentially banished to this world, but we've also been given an opportunity ourselves. Moving on, verse 68. Why did they not reflect on this scripture? Do they not realize they have received something never attained by their ancestors? Have they failed to recognize their messenger? Is this why they're disregarding him? Have they decided that he is crazy? Indeed, he has brought the truth to them, but most of them hate the truth. Indeed, if the truth conformed to their wishes, there would be chaos in the heavens and earth. Everything in them would be corrupted. We have given them their proof, but they're disregarding their proof. So, yeah, we can see that, to God belongs all the truth, and no one can do what God can do. No one can be another God but God. And we can see a lot of people hate this idea. Maybe the hardcore rebels in the beginning, they hated this truth because they knew it was the truth. They disliked it. Obviously, Satan, that happened to Satan, he disliked the fact that God possesses all the power, and only God, I just heard, only God possesses all the power, and so, they don't accept this, so we can see, that's just too unfortunate for them. Are you asking them for a wage? Your Lord's wage is far better. He is the best provider. Most assuredly, you're inviting them to a straight path. So this is, we're not, messengers, we're not, God's not asking these people for anything. They're just inviting them to be forgiven. Those who disbelieve in the hereafter will surely deviate from the right path. Even when we showered them with mercy and relieved their problems, they plunge deeper into transgression and continue to blunder. Even when we afflicted them with retribution, they never turned to their Lord imploring. So, this would, someone who's maybe destined to be redeemed or has sincerity, is actually, if they get afflicted with this, any type of retribution, they're going to take heed and they're going to reform and turn back to God. But we can see this isn't the case with the disbelievers, and we can see that God continually gives them chances, but they disregard all of that. Subsequently, we requited them with the severe retribution they had incurred. They were shot. He is the one who granted you the hearing, the eyesight, and brains. Rarely you're appreciative. So yeah, I gave a sermon on this some time ago that just opening our eyes and looking at what we're looking at or hearing what we're hearing, nice sounds or music or something is something that is something to be so thankful for, because there's some people out there that don't have this. He's the one who established you on earth, and before him you will be summoned. He is the one who controls life and death, and he is the one who alternates night and day. Do you not understand? They said what their ancestors said. They said, after we die and become dust and bones, we get resurrected. Such promises were given to us and to our parents in the past. These are no more than tales from the past. So yeah, you can see that they scoff, they think this stuff is made up and it's tales, but obviously they've been duped by their devil and by Satan himself too, that these are just fabricated, and they're so, you can see that they're it's interesting to see how confident they are and how sure they are about this, so that just exposes how arrogant these people are, because they're like, their minds are made up, Verse 84, most believers are that say, to whom belongs the earth and everyone on it, if you know. They will say to God, say, why then do you not take heed? Say, who is the Lord of the 7 universes, the Lord of the great dominion? They will say, God. Say, why then do you not turn righteous? So I'm going to read this footnote and wrap up this verse, and we'll call it for this teaching session. Belief in God is valid, and this is for verses 84 through 89. So belief in God is valid only if one recognizes God's qualities, such as the fact that God controls everything, and that's, we can see that also talked about in Surah 8, verse 17. Believers who do not know God are not really believers. Most believers nullify their beliefs by idolizing such powerless idols as the prophets and saints. So that's what I was just saying earlier. You have to know God to actually understand that, about predestination or these things that are predetermined. Because if not, you're going to end up disbelieving, which I've seen that happen with someone kind of close to me. They don't know God, probably because they don't want to know God as He is, and maybe they're unappreciative for God's qualities too, and they just lack. And it also, ego and arrogance come into the equation. But I mean, you can see this too, how important we should be, and how hard we should try to work, and to work for the hereafter, and also at the same time, subsequently we'll be escaping if we make it such a horrible destiny. Because you can see most people that believe in God, they don't know God as He truly is. They don't know Him as a creator for all things. They don't know that He controls everything down to an atom's weight and smaller. And you can see this because it's evident by their practices of them praying to these prophets and saints. So, or just, I mean, they could, and just this last point, they could just idolize someone, like they think they turn to their work or their job or something, or their wife or their spouse or any person that they think that, oh, this person has the power to get me this position or this job, and you're failing the test. You do that, you're disbelieving in God, because now you're giving this person, this nobody, really, they're a nobody, you're giving them all types of power, like he has the power to wave a wand, and essentially not physically do that, but if for all practical purposes it's the same thing, like, oh, he has the power to wave a wand and give me this thing or give me that. So this is a way that Satan, if he can't get us to idol worship the prophets and the saints, he'll try to get us to and so with this being said, if there's any comments and questions from today's reading, please feel free. Thank you.
MashaAllah, thank you. So I guess I wanted to talk about the few verses that we read. We read about some verses about how these people tore themselves into disputing factions. That God sent them the message, and they tore themselves into disputing factions, which is verse 52, 53. It says, "Such is your congregation, one congregation, and I am your Lord. You shall reverence me. But they tore themselves into disputing factions. Each party had, therefore just leave them in their confusion for a while." So I've seen that, sometimes people will use these verses to try to, justify, for example, being with hypocrites, mingling with hypocrites, and, people think that just by forcing ourselves to be in the same room with hypocrites, somehow we can be united, and this is, I just wanted to reiterate the fact that this is the opposite of what God says regarding the hypocrites. God says we have to run for our lives from these people, and every time there is a situation where the hypocrites drop out and they separate themselves from believers, some people will see it as they'll look like this is so bad that there's division happening and people get sad and stuff like that, and they think that, no, we have to be together and we have to be united. So the thing is that the believers should understand themselves wrong. He reconciles the heart. The real, whatever. by Christians, then they already separate themselves from the religion, and these are the people that God is talking about. And you're not now. When these people divide themselves into disputing factions, God doesn't say go and unite with them, right? There's no place in the Quran where God says unite with the people who have divided their religion and have created innovations, or they say they believe but they don't. Go befriend them and try to force them to accept submission, or force yourself to be with those people. There's nowhere in the Quran that we yet see, people basically Satan, wants to make sure that these people continue to cause maximum damage among submitters and propagate their ideas without being interrupted, and you just accept them among yourselves. And so I think we have spoken about that enough in our group studies. We can talk about it more. The idea here is obviously, that these people divide their religion from the believers. They're doing the wrong thing by doing that. But once they do that, it's not our job to go and be with them, to say, even though they did all these things, we have to go for ourselves to be with them. Okay, they have innovated. You should to remind them. So that's on them, right? You're not responsible